Now that you are able to see things through the lens of opportunity, now that you're able to shift your perspective a little bit, hopefully, to be able to see that these feelings of imposter syndrome and self-doubt, these are actually opportunities that are very purposely presenting themselves because they want to be moved. So when you start to see things through that lens, you can then begin to focus on this little exercise that I'm going to share with you now. So you can take some time to just reflect on, first and foremost, as a yoga teacher, what are some of your biggest worries? What are some of your biggest fears? What are some things that you feel really shook up by if they were to happen in your class while you're teaching? And I mean specifically, it could be something that happens with the students. It could be something that you say, like, oh my God, what if I said this thing? Or oh my God, what if I forgot this thing? What if I told someone the wrong thing? What if I'm not good enough? Like, just really take some time right now to feel into those things and to really be honest and reflect. And you're more than welcome to pause the video and take time to feel into these things. You might also like to write them down. That can be a great tool as well. So take time to do that now, and then you can play me again when you're ready to move on. So the next step that you can do after you've taken time to reflect on these things, and possibly you've written them down, is to look at not just where these things are showing up for you in your teaching, these insecurities, these fears that you have in your teaching, but where they stem from going further back before you started teaching. And you might know exactly the moment when you felt and you had this perception that you weren't good enough, you weren't smart enough, you weren't capable enough, whatever all these things are. And I really encourage you to observe as you do this part of the exercise how much this not self thing is coming up. I am not this, I'm not that. As I said before, not good enough, not smart enough, not capable, not loved, not valued. Whatever these not things are that you feel like you can take from your fears and your worries around being a teacher and then relate them outside of that teaching capacity and bring them further back in time to moments, instances, situations, people where you actually felt that it was very clear for you that you developed a not self idea, a false core belief. Now, this again might be something that just comes to you straight away, and it might be something that takes a little bit longer for you to reflect on. Now, if you feel that you are not able to, go back in time really, really far, that doesn't matter, okay? Just go to the time in your life where you felt that the strongest, where you felt this false core belief, this insecurity, this fear, this worry. Where and when did you feel that the strongest? You can take some time to pause the video and reflect on that, or write this down and come back when you're done. Now, it is most likely that when addressing these things, looking at our fears, our worries, our insecurities as a yoga teacher, seeing where that also is showing up in other areas of our lives, or where that might be stemming from and originating from, I invite you to observe how it's very likely, as I said before, that most of these things start with I am not this, I am not that. So when you look at these things, if there is anything within this list or these things that you wrote down that you really deeply feel are true, like, I just feel that's so true that I'm not smart. I just feel that's so true that I am not valuable. So look at these not self things. Look at these false beliefs, these false core beliefs, and ask yourself, are any of these things actually true? Are any of these things that I have come up with here based off of my worries, my fears, my insecurities, are any of them actually true about me. And I can almost guarantee you that 99% of them, if not all of them, you will say and you will recognize, these are not true. And when you can recognize and you can see that these ideas that you have and this narrative and this story that you've been playing out is full of narratives that are just not true, that is one of the most foundational components to you being able to move past this tendency towards feeling like you're not good enough. And what these things are doing, when you recognize these things especially, is they are encouraging you to, again, to feel them and to feel like, what does that feel like if I'm not good enough? How does that feel for me, right? And is there any truth to that at all? And when you feel those things, then you can go in the direction of seeing where they provide you with a reflection for being more loving with yourself, creating more of a loving relationship with yourself, more of an honest relationship with yourself, and just more freedom within yourself, more of this ownership and this autonomy so that you can begin to focus on the things that are actually really important to you and much more clearly and potently deliver your yoga classes. And not even just your yoga classes, but also the way that you show up in your life, in your relationships, and how you interact with the greater wide world around you. Just quickly going back to some of these things that if you really see, if you do have, like, let's say 95% in the false category, and you've really, let yourself believe that this thing is true about you, this disempowering belief, let's say, that it is really true about you, and you feel like you just can't, you're having a hard time moving past that, and you really feel like that's true about you, which is probably unlikely, but if there is some of that stuff that's still there, then go back to the beginning of what we have worked through. Look at where this is coming from. Look at how that feels for you and let yourself really, truly feel that. Don't try to strategize your way out of it. Just really, truly feel the emotion that is behind that. Maybe you feel angry about it. Maybe you feel mad about it. Maybe you feel disappointed. Maybe you feel sad and you feel regretful or remorseful or sorrowful. Maybe you feel highly triggered. Like, all of these things that come through are designed to purposely be felt so that they can be expressed, so that you can begin to dismantle your false core beliefs that you have. So anything that you feel like you're not able to say is like, oh, that's true. Like, I'm just not good enough, right? Go back to looking at that. Where did that come from? What is that trying to tell you? How does that feel to be not good enough? What's the emotion behind that for you? Let yourself feel it, reflect on it, and then see if you can keep working through that process until you can put what you thought was true into the false category. Because I can guarantee you most of the things that you believe might be true about yourself as a teacher, they're not true. They're just gifts that are wrapped up in, let's say, a packaging that you might not recognize. So they are opportunities for you to dismantle, dissolve false core beliefs that you have about yourself. And this, again, is one of the most key core elements to you helping move that stuff and helping shift that stuff. But not with the intention of, I don't want to feel it, but I'm going to feel it, I'm going to sit with it. It's okay to sit with it even if it's uncomfortable, because allowing myself to sit with it will allow it to begin to come up and move. And when it moves, then I can strategize. Then I can work on my skills. Then I can do a training. But to do all those outside things, all those external things, they can't truly be landing within you in a transformative way, deeply at your core, until you first address those false core beliefs that you have, and you let yourself really truly feel the emotions that are coming up that have been suppressed for so long or been fixed, which have then created the false core beliefs. And I wanted to share a really beautiful example of a teacher that I had mentored who was a very different person when she would go into the room and teach versus when she would be out. And she always said, I just don't feel, I don't feel super confident when I teach. And you could you could feel that, you could see that in her classes. There was a lot of hesitancy and there was a lot of reservation. And then I would see her interact with students, and she was so candid and she had such a beautiful demeanor with them, and you could really see her personality coming through. And she had this idea that when she stepped on her mat, she had to be someone else. She had to perform, in a sense. She had to fit this kind of yoga mold. So it really had nothing to do with her ability as a yoga teacher. It had to do with her unwillingness to feel herself as she was teaching, or feel the, what if no one accepts me? What if I step on my mat and I'm me and that's not good enough for a yoga teacher? So she really had to dismantle a lot of that. And as soon as she started to observe and reflect and just sit with, like, okay, well, so what if people don't think I'm a great yoga teacher? So what if people don't like me? Like, what does that mean? How does that make me feel? What is that bringing up for me, right? As soon as she let herself do that, there was an immediate change. She didn't have to try to make a change. She just had to let herself feel that, reflect on that, entertain how that was all playing out, and then the change started to happen in her classes automatically without her even having to strategize. It was just that simple core fundamental change of a worry, a fear that she had, and then her acknowledgement of that, how that started to dissolve some of these false core beliefs that she had about herself. And then she started to bring a lot more confidence into her classes. And it's not even just about being confident, it's about how that translates for your students, and how she was able to much more effectively offer a class for her students that was very potent and beneficial and transformative for them. So once you have been able to really witness and view your self-doubt, your insecurities, your worries, your fears, all these things as offerings, as opportunities, as a gift of reflection that is purposely there. Again, you co-created this, right? You put yourself in the role as a teacher. You put yourself in these shoes to be able to experience this so that you could dissolve it, that you could let it go in some capacity, gradually over time. And this really is the first step towards long-lasting self-assurance as a teacher, and one that you can come back to over and over and over again, not just for your teaching, but for everything in your life as well.